Hello, how are you doing? I hope you're having a fantastic day. And today, we're going to go over Sovereign Okinec Ahau. I think I said it right, but I'm almost certain I butchered it. So going forward, we're just going to call this guy Sovereign to make my life and your life a lot easier. Sovereign is a 3/4 cat noble for 2 green and a white. That states it comes with War 2, and whenever Sovereign Okinec Ahau attacks, for each creature you control with power greater than that creature's base power, put a number of 1/1 counters on that creature equal to the difference. Though his wording comes off a bit weird, let's break this down. It's actually quite simple. So we're going to use Sovereign as an example. He has 3 base power, but let's say we gave him, I don't know, Rancor, which gives him +2/+0, which now he is a 5 power creature. Whenever he attacks, because 5 is a 2-point difference from his base power of 3, he would get 2 1/1 counters, making his power actually 7. Now this ability triggers when Sovereign attacks, but it doesn't limit to just Sovereign or any creatures that are already attacking. If any creature has a power difference, regardless of the reason why, then it's going to do that. So if you have, let's say, a 1/1 soldier on the field and you have a global buff that's giving both Sovereign and the 1/1 creature, +1/+1, then that token would also get a +1/+1 counter because its power is greater than its actual base power, even though it's not the one that's attacking. As long as Sovereign is attacking, everyone gets this benefit. Next up, we need to talk about what kind of buffs we're going to use in this deck, so that way when Sovereign attacks, we can get a lot of value out of him. Now some of these will be single target, like auras, and some of them is going to be just global that's going to affect all of our creatures, which are some of the better ones, honestly. Going alphabetical, we have an enchantment aura called Boar Umbra that gives the creature +3/+3, and it has totem armor, meaning whenever the creature would die, instead this aura is destroyed and the creature still gets to live. This serves as bonus buffs and protection for our commander. Collective Blessing is an enchantment that gives all your creatures +3/+3. This can go really good when you start getting tokens on the field and all of them are getting 1/1 counters. Commander's Insignia is an underrated enchantment that gives all of your creatures +1/+1 for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. Considering that Okinec is going to be a target and probably blown up many times throughout this game, this is going to get a lot of value really fast. Gaia's Anthem, very cheap card that gives all your creatures +1/+1 for only 3 mana. It will take you farther than you think. Glorious Anthem, which is essentially the white version of Gaia's Anthem. The exact same thing, just 2 white pips instead of 2 green. Glorious Sunrise is one of my favorites in the deck. It can give all of our creatures +1/+1 and trample, which is very useful for breaking through front lines and killing people. Or it can give us our 1 land extra ramp, or we can get card draw out of it, or we can gain life if we're getting bodied. So this card is really useful in this deck. Into the Trenches is what happens when you get an Oblivion Ring and a Glorious Anthem and they have a baby. This is the exact same thing. It's a bit more expensive because you got to pay 6 mana to get the O-Ring effect, but you can have it sit there and just give you buffs, and whenever you need to get rid of something, it's on board removal whenever you need it. Kamal, Fist of Kroza is super dope. He's an overrun spell on a body, so +3/+3 and trample to all of your creatures, him included. Additionally, you can just pay green and just dump it into it and make all of your lands 1/1 creatures as well, meaning Sovereign's gonna buff your lands whenever you need to swing full Alpha Strike. King Darien the 48th? Listen, I'm not very good with Roman numerals, so if I'm wrong, you can correct me in the comments down below. But he gives all creatures +1/+1, and for 5 mana can put 1/1 counter on himself and then create a soldier token. So not only will he buff himself in case he's the only one buffing our team, he'll buff himself when Sovereign attacks, so that way he can reap the benefits, and he can create little soldiers to help us start getting to that board state with just him and Sovereign on the board, which is very effective. Now, I don't want to skip out the fact that you can sacrifice him to give creature tokens hexproof and indestructible. It's just not the part that I'm focusing on, considering, well, it's going to take us some time to get tokens out of this guy, even if we decide to go that route. So that's like, part of it all. Kungmin, Sleeping Dragon, is basically a Glorious Anthem on the body, so he'll give all of our creatures +1/+1, but ultimately something will then buff him up, and it's kind of like we're swinging with our own Glorious Anthem while buffing our board with said Glorious Anthem. Maja, Guard Protector, is really awesome and gives all your creatures +1/+1, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you get a 1/1 white human warrior, just like King Darien the 48th, whatever. It basically creates tokens, but this one gives us tokens for free. We don't have to pay anything, we just make them. But with this and King Darien, those tokens are going to stick around for a long time. Spear of Heliod is an artifact enchantment that gives all of our creatures +1/+1. So it's a glorious anthem that's an artifact and an enchantment. Additionally, we can pay 1 and double white and tap it to destroy target creature that dealt damage to you this turn. So let a creature through, let it hit you, and we can just pay 3 mana and it becomes removal as well. Thraben Watcher is an angel that has flying and vigilance, and it gives all of our non-token creatures we control +1/+1 and vigilance. So that way we can attack and block with our massive board state. Thunderfoot Bailoff is a 5/5 beast with trample, and it says it has the lieutenant ability, meaning as long as our commander's on the battlefield, it gets benefits. And in this case, all of our creatures and it will get +2/+2 and trample. So our commander, our tokens, him are just going to start swinging through and bodying the board while getting additional 1/1 counters because of our commander. This guy is so good. Ultramarines Honor Guard. It has all the creatures get +1/+1, but it comes with the ability Squad. So late game, after you've recovered from a board wipe and you've got a bunch of open mana, you can just pay 2 extra mana when you cast a spell multiple times, and then make multiple copies of Ultramarines Honor Guard. And it gets out of hand really fast when you have Sovereign on the field. The last one in this category is Ovenwald Oddity. Now, this is a weird one because it's only a 4/4 with trample and haste. However, if you pay 7 mana, you get to transform it, and then it becomes the Ovenwald Behemoth, which is an 8/8 trample haste and gives all other creatures you control +1/+1 trample and haste. Very good, very late game swinger. Love this card. Now, since this deck is all about giving all of your creatures an additional 1/1 counters, then we want to find a way that we can synergize creatures and abilities to get the most out of each of our 1/1 counters. Now, the Abzan Battle Priest gives each of the creatures we control with a 1/1 counter on it lifelink, and likewise, the Abzan Falconeer gives each of our creatures with 1/1 counters flying. Now, the Crowned Ceratok, Pride Malkin, and Tuskguard Captain will give each of our creatures with 1/1 counters on them trample. I wanted this one to have a bit more redundancy because it prevents creatures from just chump blocking you with a 1/1 goblin. We want to make all the damage we can count. Champion of the Lamphope is actually one of our win conditions. It's a very simple card. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, Champion Lamphope gets a 1/1 counter. And no creature your opponents control can block any of our creatures who has power less than Champion Lamphope. She doesn't even have to attack. As long as you have something that's weaker than her, none of our creatures can be blocked. So as long as she's getting buffed by our commander, we're just going straight to the face. We have Clamavis, or Clamavus. I don't know how to pronounce it, but you can see it on the screen. It says each creature you control gets +1/+1 for each 1/1 counter on it. This in itself will essentially double the power of each creature we have, and it will get exponentially out of control. Evolution Witness is a wonderful card in this set. It has Adapt 2, meaning you can pay 1 in the green, and if it doesn't have any 1/1 counters on it, it'll get 2 1/1 counters on it. But what we want is, whenever 1 or more 1/1 counters are put on Evolution Witness, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. This is the Eternal Witness on a stick that we can do over every single turn. Nothing is ever going to stay gone as long as this is in our deck. Every deck is going to need some card draw. And so we've got a few options here for us to use. A bit jank, but not all terrible at all. First one up, we have the Angelic Sleuth. It is a flying creature that states whenever a permanent you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, investigate. This works for bouncing, destruction, or even if it was exiled. And with the investigate with the clue token, we could just pay some mana, crack it, and draw a card. Like I said, not the most effective, but it's a body and gives us a means of drawing cards. Armorcraft Judge states whenever it enters the battlefield, draw a card for each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it. I don't think I need to explain why this is good, considering we're literally making a 1/1 counter deck. We have our generic Harmonize here. Hey, if you're going for a budget, nothing is wrong with a good old Harmonize. Hunter's Insight is probably like my second favorite card draw spell in green. It states whenever choose target creature you control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker this turn, draw that many cards. And considering our creatures are getting really big and really fast, we can easily be drawing 10, 12 cards at a time with this. Inspiring Call is practically a must in a 1/1 counter deck. It states draw a card for each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it, and those creatures gain indestructible until the end of turn. Now, we know Farewells exist, that's not going to help with that, but it still gets to draw us a lot of cards. And lastly, we have Kutzel, Malamut Exemplar. Now, this is a cat warrior that states your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. love it already. And whenever one or more creatures you control with power greater than its base power deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So, depending on how you attack, you can get up to 3 cards drawn this turn if you deal combat damage to each of your opponents in one combat step. So, not terrible. Through my playtesting, I find that this deck becomes an easy target, so we want to make sure that we can run some protection cards to keep our board state strong. Starting up, we've got the Bastion Protector, one of my favorite cards. Commander creatures you control get +2/+2 and have indestructible, so buff your commander and you can swing with them without fear of retribution. Well, little retribution. Gaia's Gift is an instant that gives a creature +1/+1 counter, and it gives them reach, trample, hexproof, and indestructible. This is a really good way to use it offensively or defensively. Kerbis Harvest Celebrant is a 0/0 creature that costs 2 green and X. It enters the battlefield with a number of 1/1 counters on it equal to the mana spent on it, so the more you spend, the stronger it comes into the battlefield. Remove a 1/1 counter from Kerbis to prevent all damage that will be dealt to another creature with a 1/1 counter on it. Now, if you have enough 1/1 counters on Kerbis, you can spend all the 1/1 counters to keep each of your creatures safe from damage, whether it be a Blasphemous Act or a creature with, First Strike and Death Touch. So, as long as you have enough counters, your board state's pretty much immune to damage. Take up the shield as an instant for a white and 1. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature. It gains lifelink and indestructible this way. I particularly like this one because it gives us a 1/1 counter, so it still also fuels our commander. There's a bunch of cards that cost 1 that can do that, but I really like the 1/1 counter. Unbreakable Formation is an instant for a white and 2, and it states creatures you control are indestructible this turn. Super awesome. However, if you played this during your main phase, put a 1/1 counter on each of those creatures and they gain vigilance. So you can cast this in your main phase, swing up, make everyone stronger, trigger your commander, have vigilance, have blockers, or you can save it in hand for a possible board wipe and keep your board safe. Now, on the opposite spectrum of protection, we need to make sure we run some removal. Even though we are likely to be the problem, we won't always be the problem. Aberrant is a 0/0 Tyrannid Mutant for 1, a green, and X. It has Ravenous, meaning if X is 5 or more, you get to draw a card when it enters the battlefield. But it has Trample and Heavy Power Hammer, stating whenever Aberrant deals combat damage to a player, destroy target artifact or enchantment that player controls. Considering that his power is 0, and that's with every power 0 here, those creatures will double in power every time our commander attacks, minimum. So we want to make sure that we get this guy in, and you can drop X as 1. And then by the time your commander is out and swinging, he'll be strong enough to just break through people's defenses and destroy their soul rings, arcane signets, and God knows what else people might be bringing in. Constable of the Realm is a 4 and a white for a 3/3 giant soldier with renown 2. That states whenever 1 or more 1/1 counters are put on Constable of the Realm, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent until Constable of the Realm leaves the battlefield. So you can Oblivion Ring a bunch of creatures every combat. This is going to be really annoying for the enemy and likely open up a few spaces so you can get through if you exile some creatures. Ruinous Intrusion is a card that I actually loved for quite some time. It is an instant for 3 and a green. Exile target artifact or enchantment. Put X 1/1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the mana value of the exiled permanent. So this is going to be really good for getting rid of those target ones. If you can't break through with an Aberrant, this is a good way to just get rid of some really annoying equipments or artifacts or any enchantments that will be problematic, or any indestructible god cards. All the while buffing up one of your creatures, preferably your commander, or something else that would be devastating to land some combat damage. That's pretty much all the ones that I have right now. There are a bunch in the deck that I have. You can see in the deck tag down below, but these are the ones that synergize with the commander specifically. Now, I failed to mention in the beginning of the video, but the title will tell you, this is a budget deck. And as a budget deck, there's a ton of cards that we can replace in this deck for far more powerful but expensive variants. So let's go through these, and I'm just going to shoot them through alphabetically and go over them as fast as possible. Akroma's Will. Any deck that runs white that likes to attack to win is going to want Akroma's Will. This is an easy win condition for your deck. Avenger of Zendikar is a staple in most green decks. However, those little plant tokens we make will easily become our attacking force to just obliterate everyone at the table. Beastmaster's Ascension, because we want to attack every turn and as much as possible. Getting the 7 quest counters are going to be easy, and because it's a massive +5/+5, our board is going to be super strong as long as our commander's out. As with all 1/1 counters, Branching Evolution. Essentially just double the 1/1 counters that we put on any of our creatures. It's kind of a no-brainer. Damning Verdict was a fun one. It becomes a one-sided board wipe, which if you can do a one-sided board wipe, why not? It'll open up the board and allows you to go in for a finishing kill. Can't talk about buffs with Mommy Elish Norn. The Grand Cenobite, giving all of our creatures +2/+2 and all of our enemies -2/-2. This kills most tokens that will come out in the battlefield and empower our board state significantly. Colonial Hydra is one of those zero-cost cards that just ramps up ridiculously fast. I mean, in itself, it ramps fast enough, but with our commander, this is going to be wiping out one player in like 1 turn, 2 turns tops. Kamal, Heart of Crocia is a good one. This is the overrun ability, but you don't have to pay mana for it. He does it at the beginning of every combat on our turn. So as long as he's around, every one of our creatures are getting +3/+3 and trample for free. Lifeblood Hydra is another zero-cost creature that once he starts attacking, he's going to start bodying people left and right. But if someone actually kills the thing, you actually gain a crap ton of life and draw a bunch of cards. So if it lives, you win. If it dies, benefits. Monogorgia Hydra is a card that's going to just buff itself just by naturally existing. People are going to play spells throughout the game, and just for that, it's going to get stronger, and your commander's going to make an easy trigger on it. Especially if you cast this bad boy late game when people have a ton of mana. One of my favorite green cards that I use to win games, Overwhelming Stampede. Just take the huskiest creature we control, all of our creatures are going to gain that much power and get trample, and then attack, which is then going to make our creatures that much stronger again if our commander's attacking. Shadow Spear is like the best equipment in my mind. I love it. It's cheap to equip, gets rid of indestructible and hexproof, and gives our commander trample and lifelink so we can stay in the game longer and kill people faster. Any deck that wants to run any type of counters is going to want an Ozolith. That creature gets removed, put those counters on Ozolith. Save it for a rainy day, put a creature out there, take all those counters you lost and put it on them. This is ridiculous. Unnatural Growth is probably one of the most ridiculous cards that came out of the Innistrad set. At the beginning of each combat, mind you, double the power of all your creatures. So not only your creatures husky on other people's turns, on your turn, they're going to get ridiculously strong. Vorinclex Monstrous Raider is like a branching evolution on steroids on the back of a Phyrexian. This guy not only doubles all of the counters you can get, and I say counters, any type of counters, though we're dealing with woman counters, it will stop other people from gaining counters. So anyone's got a pesky Planeswalker that keeps getting +1 counter activatability, nah, denied. Sapandrel Hunger Dominus is essentially a Phyrexian version of Unnatural Growth on a body. 4/6 creature will reach, just doubling each combat the power and toughness of each creature you control. So this guy is just ridiculous. Because he has reach, he'll just stay behind and block. Now, if something will happen to him, you can pay 2 Phyrexian green and sacrifice 2 other creatures to put an indestructible counter on them. So if they're going to board wipe, you might as well sack 2 of your creatures and keep them around. There you have it. That is Sovereign, both the budget and the upgraded cards that I would use for it. I am a sucker for cards that turn my creatures sideways for the dub. I know technical is probably the best way to go, but I mean, there's just something that feels so good about sending my creatures in like an army to just beat the brakes off my enemies. So yeah, I'm a bit biased towards this, but if you guys enjoyed the video, let me know. Hit the like button, subscribe for more, and comment down below particularly what you would add to the deck, or what you would take out of the deck, or what budget cards I may have missed. You know, let's get some conversations going as I prep for the next video. I promise you it won't be as long. I'll see you guys around. Thank you for seeing the video, and see you guys around. Peace.